By the third night, even the hospital lights seemed to know I had nowhere else to go. They hummed above me in that tired, electric way, turning everything pale and honest, the white tile, the gray walls, the blue plastic chairs that had become my bed, my dining room, my chapel, and my punishment. St. Mercy Hospital never really slept. It only lowered its voice after midnight. The vending machines clicked softly near the elevators. A nurse's sneakers whispered past every few minutes. Somewhere behind the double doors of the ICU, a monitor kept beeping with the calm cruelty of something that did not understand fear. I sat curled across two waiting room chairs with my coat pulled over my chest, one hand wrapped around my phone, the other around the thin paper bracelet they had given me when they admitted my younger brother. Noah Carter, 17 years old, 5 feet 10, 148 pounds. Critical but stable. I had read those words so many times they had stopped looking like English. Every time the ICU doors opened, my body woke before my mind did. My eyes snapped open. My heart climbed into my throat. I searched the nurse's face before she even said a name, because that was what 3 nights did to a person. It turned every footstep into a warning. It turned every silence into a verdict. My shoes were still damp from the rain that had followed me in on the first night. I had not gone home to change them. Home was 12 miles away in a second-floor apartment with a deadbolt that stuck, a landlord who had stopped being patient, and a couch where Noah's hoodie still lay folded over the arm like he might walk in and grab it. I could not go back there. Not without him. So I stayed. I drank coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard. I counted ceiling tiles. I washed my face in the restroom sink and pretended the woman staring back at me did not look like she was disappearing. Around 2:17 in the morning, the hallway changed. I felt it before I looked up. The air tightened. The nurses at the desk lowered their voices. A security guard near the elevator straightened as if someone had pulled a string through his spine. Then I saw him. A man in a black suit walking through the hospital like the building had been built around his permission. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair brushed back from a face too controlled to be called handsome in any simple way. Handsome was for movie stars and men who smiled in grocery stores. This man looked like decisions people regretted ignoring. 2 men walked behind him, also in suits, quiet and watchful, but he did not look back to see if they followed. He knew they did. I had seen him before. The first night, he passed the waiting room without slowing. The second night, I caught him looking at me for half a second longer than strangers were supposed to. Now on the third night, his eyes found me again. I looked away fast because people like that did not belong in the same world as girls sleeping in hospital chairs. My phone buzzed in my hand, and I flinched so hard my shoulder hit the wall. No new message. Just low battery. 22%. I exhaled, embarrassed by my own fear, and pulled my coat tighter. When I looked up again, the man in the black suit was no longer walking. He stood at the edge of the waiting room, his gaze moving from my worn sneakers to the hospital bracelet in my hand, to the paper cup of cold coffee on the floor beside me. He did not speak. He did not smile. He simply looked at me as if he had noticed something everyone else had decided not to see. And for reasons I still cannot explain, that was the moment I realized I had not been invisible at all. The man in the black suit stepped into the waiting room without asking permission, and somehow nobody stopped him. That was the first thing I noticed. Not his height, though he was easily over 6 feet. Not the expensive watch beneath his cuff, or the way his shoes made almost no sound on the polished floor. It was the way the hospital made space for him. A nurse who had told me twice not to sleep across the chairs suddenly looked down at her paperwork. The security guard near the elevator stopped pretending to check his phone. Even the doctor who passed through the double doors gave the man a careful nod before disappearing into the intensive care unit. Sat up too quickly, my coat sliding off my shoulder, my neck stiff from sleeping wrong for 3 nights in a row. For a second I thought he might tell me to leave. People with money always seemed to know when poor people were taking up too much space. I had learned that in apartment offices, grocery lines, emergency rooms, and anywhere else desperation had fluorescent lighting. But he did not tell me to move. He stopped beside the vending machine, reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, and took out a folded bill without looking at it. The machine hummed, clicked, and dropped a cup of coffee into the tray. Then another. He picked them both up and walked toward me. I watched him the way a person watches a storm through a window, aware that glass is not always enough protection. Close, he looked older than I first guessed. Maybe 34, maybe 35. Not old, but marked by a kind of experience that did not soften a person. His eyes were dark gray, almost silver under the hospital lights, and they did not wander. When he looked at me, he looked directly, as if distraction was something other people could afford. He set one cup on the empty chair beside mine. Steam curled up between us. I had not realized how cold my hands were until I reached for it. "You look like someone who forgot she was allowed to be human," he said. His voice was low, calm, American, but with something old world underneath it, a faint Italian shape around certain words. I stared at the coffee because staring at him felt dangerous. "I am fine," came out too fast, too practiced. He glanced at the chairs, at my coat, at the vending machine dinner wrappers in the trash can near my feet. "No, you are not." I should have been offended. I wanted to be. Instead, my throat tightened so suddenly that I had to swallow before I could speak. "Do you always tell strangers how they feel?" "Only when they are bad at lying." My fingers tightened around the paper cup. The heat stung my skin, but I did not let go. It gave me something to feel besides fear. "Thank you for the coffee," I said. "But I do not need help." For the first time, something almost like a smile touched his mouth, not warm enough to be kind, not sharp enough to be cruel. Most people who need help say that first. One of the men behind him shifted near the hallway entrance. The movement was small, but I caught it. The suit, the posture, the quiet watchfulness. These were not friends. They were protection. The kind rich people hired when they had enemies. The kind dangerous people kept when they had more than money to lose. "Who are you?" I asked before I could stop myself. The nurse at the desk looked up sharply, like I had broken a rule nobody had explained to me. The man did not. "Vincent Moretti." He said it simply, as if the name should mean something. Maybe it did. Maybe in another life I would have known enough about the city to be afraid faster. But I was too tired for reputation. Too tired for whispers. Too tired to carry another reason to shake. "Emily Carter," I said, because silence felt worse. His eyes moved to the bracelet twisted around my fingers. "Noah Carter is yours?" The question was gentle in wording but not in weight. My breath caught. "My brother." "How old?" 17. His jaw changed just slightly. A shadow passed through his expression and disappeared before I understood it. "And your parents?" The coffee suddenly felt too hot. "Gone." He did not apologize. I was grateful for that. Sorry had become a word people gave me when they had nothing useful to offer. Vincent looked toward the intensive care unit doors, then back at me. "So you are alone." I lifted my chin, though every muscle in my body wanted to fold. "I am with him." For a moment, the waiting room went quiet enough that I could hear the clock above the nurse's station ticking. Vincent Moretti looked at me as if that answer had cost me something he respected. Then he stepped back, giving me space I had not expected him to understand. "Drink the coffee, Emily Carter," he said. "You are going to need your strength." And as he turned toward the elevators, every person in that hallway watched him leave, while I sat there holding the first warm thing anyone had handed me in 3 days. I did drink the coffee because pride was one thing and a shaking body was another. It tasted terrible, bitter and thin, but it was hot, and heat felt like proof that I had not turned completely into stone. For 10 minutes after Vincent Moretti left, I sat very still with both hands around the cup, pretending I was not watching the elevator doors. Pretending his name had not changed the air around me. Pretending I did not notice the nurses speaking softer now, glancing at me with new caution, as if a man like him setting coffee beside me had placed a mark on my chair. I hated that. I hated that his attention could do in 1 minute what my exhaustion had failed to do in 3 days. Make people see me. The intensive care unit doors opened at 2:43 in the morning, and I almost dropped the cup. A young resident stepped out, his hair flattened on one side like he had been sleeping in a supply closet. I knew his face by then. Dr. Patel. Kind eyes. Bad news voice. He scanned the waiting room, found me, and the world narrowed to the space between us. "Miss Carter." I stood so fast my knees nearly gave out. "Is he okay?" The question came out small, embarrassing, like a child asking if the dark would behave tonight. Dr. Patel held up one hand gently. He is stable. No major changes. We are still watching the swelling, and we need another scan in the morning. But right now he is holding steady. Holding steady. Those two words should not have felt like mercy, but they did. I pressed my fist against my mouth and nodded because speaking would have broken me open. Can I see him? He hesitated, and I knew the answer before he gave it. 5 minutes. Quietly. I followed him through the double doors into the cold blue hush of the intensive care unit. It smelled like antiseptic, plastic tubing, and fear covered with clean sheets. Noah looked smaller than 17 in that bed. Without his hoodie, without his crooked grin, without the constant motion that made him impossible to photograph clearly, he looked like the little boy who used to crawl into my room during thunderstorms. A bandage wrapped one side of his head. Machines breathed rhythm around him. I stopped at the foot of the bed because if I went closer too fast, I was afraid my legs would stop pretending. Hey, Bug, I whispered. I had called him that since he was 6 and carried a jar of lightning bugs into our kitchen, convinced he had captured stars. It is me. I am still here. His hand rested on top of the blanket, pale and still. I reached for it carefully, threading my fingers through his. His skin was warm. That warmth saved me in a way no doctor could measure. You are going to wake up, I told him, even though nobody had promised me that. You still owe me $20 from the pizza place, and I am not letting you get out of it by being dramatic. My laugh broke halfway through and turned into something I had to swallow. I could not cry beside his bed. Crying felt like admitting the room had more power than I did. So I talked. I told him about the terrible coffee. About the nurse with purple glasses who called him handsome. About the old man in the waiting room who snored like a lawn mower. I did not tell him about the apartment. I did not tell him the landlord had sent a final notice 2 days before the accident. I did not tell him that my debit card had been declined at the cafeteria that afternoon over a sandwich and a bottle of water. I did not tell him about Travis Miller or the messages, or the way my stomach twisted every time my phone lit up. Noah had enough machines attached to him. He did not need my fear too. When my 5 minutes ended, Dr. Patel touched the doorframe softly. I kissed Noah's knuckles and backed away before I begged for more time. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. That was when my phone buzzed again. This time it was not the battery. Travis. The name glowed on the crack screen like a warning sign. I did not open the message at first. I already knew the shape of it. His anger had a pattern. First sweet, then sorry, then blaming, then threatening everything I still loved. My thumb hovered trembling before I tapped the screen. You need to stop making this harder than it is, Emily. Sign the statement. Say Noah ran into the street. Say you do not remember the car. Then go home before somebody decides you are a problem too. The hallway seemed to tilt. I read it once. Twice. The words blurred. Behind me the elevator chimed. I locked the phone so fast it slipped from my hand and hit the floor. When I bent to grab it, I saw polished black shoes stop in front of me. Slowly I looked up. Vincent Moretti stood there, his expression unreadable, his eyes fixed not on my face, but on the phone shaking in my hand. For one terrible second, neither of us moved. The hospital hallway stretched around us in cold white silence, and the phone in my hand felt heavier than it should have, as if Travis had somehow reached through the screen and wrapped his fingers around my throat. Vincent Moretti looked down at it, then at me. He did not ask to see the message. He did not take the phone. Somehow that made the moment worse, because men who respected boundaries were harder to hate than men who broke them. You are shaking, he said. I curled my hand around the cracked screen until the broken glass edge pressed into my palm. I am tired. That is not the same thing. His voice stayed quiet, but the air behind it had changed. The 2 men who followed him had stopped several feet away near the elevators, still as shadows in tailored coats. One of them was older, with silver at his temples and the kind of calm face that noticed exits before faces. The other kept his eyes on the empty hallway, watching everyone who passed as if the whole hospital was a map of possible problems. I hated how safe their presence made me feel. I hated it because safety was expensive, and I had learned young that expensive things were never free. I need to go back to the waiting room, I said, stepping around Vincent. He moved aside immediately. Not much. Just enough. Again that unexpected space. I walked past him with my chin up, even though my legs felt hollow. The waiting room looked different when I returned. Same blue chairs. Same buzzing lights. Same old man asleep near the window with his mouth open. But everything felt sharper now, like fear had cleaned the glass over the world. I sat down and placed my phone face down on my knee. For 2 minutes I did nothing but breathe. In through my nose. Out through my mouth. Count to 4. Start over. It was a trick Noah taught me after our parents died, when I used to wake up panicking because the apartment was too quiet. He was 12 then, all elbows and stubborn hope, sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor telling me, just count numbers, do not leave. My phone buzzed again. I flinched. Vincent had followed me, but he did not sit. He stood near the entrance to the waiting room, half in the light, half in the hallway shadow. Who is Travis? He asked. The name hit me like cold water. I looked up too fast. What? Your face changed when his name appeared. You watch people too closely. It has kept me alive. There it was. Not a threat. Not a confession. Just a fact placed between us with no decoration. I should have stopped talking. I should have told him to leave me alone. Instead, exhaustion loosened something in me that pride had been holding shut. He was my boyfriend, I said. The word boyfriend sounded childish now. Too small for what Travis had become. Was? Vincent asked. I nodded. Noah never liked him. He said Travis smiled like a salesman and listened like a cop. The memory almost made me smile, and that almost hurt more. The night of the accident, Noah called me. He said he had seen something. He sounded scared, but he would not tell me over the phone. I was working late at the bakery, and I told him to go home and wait for me. My voice thinned. I stared at the floor between my shoes. He never made it home. Vincent was silent. The kind of silence that did not rush grief out of the room. The police said it was a hit and run, I continued. No witnesses. Bad weather. A dark sedan. Travis told them Noah ran into the street. But Noah would not have done that. He was careful. He was always careful. My phone buzzed a third time. This time Vincent's eyes moved first, and something cold settled into his expression. I picked up the phone before I could lose my nerve. Another message waited there. Last chance, Emily. Sign it before morning, or the hospital becomes the least of your problems. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might be sick. Vincent read my face without reading the screen. He took one slow step closer. Emily, he said, and my name in his mouth sounded less like a question than a door opening. Who is trying to make you lie? I wanted to answer him. That was the dangerous part. The truth rose so quickly it almost escaped before pride caught it by the throat. Who was trying to make me lie? A man I had once trusted with a key to my apartment. A man who knew which bills were overdue, which windows did not lock, which memories still made me soft. Travis Miller had not looked dangerous when I first met him. He looked ordinary. Clean shirt. Easy smile. A used pickup truck with a cross hanging from the mirror. He brought coffee to the bakery on cold mornings and told Noah he had a good jump shot. That was how men like him entered your life. Not like storms. Like shelter. I looked at Vincent Moretti standing in the waiting room entrance, waiting with the patience of someone who could afford to be still, and I hated how much I wanted to hand him the burden. Nobody, I said. The lie sounded thin even to me. His eyes did not move. Emily. Just my name. No pressure. No anger. Somehow it pressed harder than both. I stood before I could weaken. Thank you for the coffee. But my brother is the only thing I need to focus on. I walked away with my phone in my fist, past the vending machines, past the chapel with its glass door and fake candles, past a family sleeping in a circle of coats near pediatrics. I did not look back. If I looked back, I was afraid I would see him still watching me. And worse, I was afraid that would make me feel less alone. By 6:30 in the morning, the hospital had changed voices. Night staff disappeared. Day staff arrived with clipped steps and fresh badges. The waiting room filled with people holding travel mugs, insurance cards, and the bright panic of those who had slept in real beds. I had just finished brushing my teeth in the restroom with water from my palm, when a woman from Patient Financial Services found me. Her name tag said Marlene. Her smile had been trained to survive bad news. Miss Carter, do you have a few minutes? Nobody asks that in a hospital unless they already know the answer. I followed her to a small office near admissions where the air smelled like printer ink and lemon disinfectant. She spoke gently, which made it worse. Insurance pending. Additional authorization required. Out-of-network specialist. Projected expenses. Words stacked on top of each other until they became a wall I could not climb. I stared at the paper she slid across the desk. The number at the bottom looked unreal. Bigger than rent. Bigger than my car. Bigger than anything I had ever held in my hands except grief. I can set up a payment plan, Marlene said. We just need an initial deposit to keep everything moving smoothly. Smoothly? I almost laughed. There was nothing smooth about my life. I opened my banking app under the desk and saw $37.18. My face went hot. Can I have until tomorrow? I asked. Marlene looked away, and that was answer enough. When I stepped back into the hallway, the floor seemed farther away than before. I made it to the restroom before the first tear fell. I locked myself in the last stall, pressed my forehead to the cool metal door, and cried without sound because sound made things real. 3 minutes. That was all I allowed myself. Then I washed my face, pinched color into my cheeks, and walked back toward the intensive care unit like my entire world was not being priced by the hour. I was halfway down the hallway when Travis appeared near the nurse's station. He wore a navy jacket and that familiar calm expression he used when other people were watching. My body knew fear before my mind admitted his name. Emily, he said softly, you are making this harder than it needs to be. I stopped. Nurses moved around us. A doctor checked a chart. Nobody understood that the hallway had just narrowed into a trap. Travis held out a folded paper and a pen. Sign the statement. Say Noah stepped off the curb. Say you are too overwhelmed to remember details. Then this can all calm down. You need to leave, I said. My voice shook, but it came out. His smile did not reach his eyes. You have $37 in the bank and a brother upstairs who needs care you cannot pay for. Do not act brave with me. The shame hit harder than the fear. He knew. Somehow he knew. He reached for my wrist, not roughly, but with the confidence of someone who had forgotten I could say no. Before his fingers touched me, a voice cut through the hallway, low and steady. Do not put your hand on her. Every conversation nearby faded. Travis turned. Vincent Moretti stood 10 feet away in a black suit, still as winter, with both of his men behind him. He did not raise his voice. He did not have to. The hospital itself seemed to listen. Travis looked him up and down, trying to decide if arrogance was still safe. Vincent took one step closer, his eyes fixed on the paper in Travis' hand. She said leave, he said. I suggest you become the kind of man who listens. Travis looked at Vincent like men look at locked doors, first with annoyance, then with calculation. He still had not learned what kind of hallway he was standing in. He glanced at the 2 men behind Vincent, at the nurses who had suddenly found reasons to move away, at the security guard near the elevator who no longer seemed interested in helping anyone except himself. Then Travis gave a small laugh, the one he used when he wanted a room to believe he was reasonable and I was emotional. This is a private conversation, he said. Vincent stopped beside me, not close enough to touch, close enough that the air felt different. No, he said. It became public when you brought paperwork to a hospital hallway and tried to corner a woman whose brother is upstairs fighting for his life. My breath caught at the word fighting. Not because it was violent, but because it was true in the quietest, hardest way. Noah was fighting with machines, with swelling, with time, with a body that had been asked to survive more than any 17-year-old should. Travis saw my face change and used it. Emily knows I am trying to help. The police report needs clarity. Her brother made a mistake, and pretending otherwise will only make things worse. Vincent looked at the folded paper in Travis' hand. Read it aloud. Travis blinked. Excuse me. You want her signature. Read what you want her to sign. The hallway went so still I could hear the printer behind the nurse's station spit out a page. Travis' jaw tightened. I do not answer to you. That is the second mistake you have made in 30 seconds. Vincent turned his head slightly. Anthony. The older man with silver at his temples stepped forward and handed Vincent a black phone. Vincent did not look at the screen for long. He did not need to. Travis Miller, 31 years old. Works for Brantley Auto Repair on Fulton Avenue. 3 unpaid personal loans. 1 suspended license you failed to mention to the investigating officer. A Navy 2018 Chevrolet Malibu registered under your cousin's name. Reported with front-end damage the morning after Noah Carter was hit. Travis went pale so quickly it was like someone had pulled the color out of him. My stomach dropped. I looked from Vincent to Travis, but neither of them looked at me. They looked at each other like the hallway had become a chessboard and every move had already been made. You do not know what you are talking about, Travis said, but his voice had lost its polish. Vincent's expression did not change. I know you took the car to a garage outside the city instead of your own shop. I know you paid cash. I know the traffic camera at Mason and 3rd went offline for exactly 9 minutes. And I know people who repair cameras remember faces better than cameras do. Travis swallowed. The paper in his hand trembled. I stared at him, and something inside me folded and unfolded at the same time. For 3 days I had been afraid of him. Afraid of his messages, his calm voice, his ability to know exactly where to press until I doubted myself. But standing there in the hospital light, with his careful lies slipping out of his hands, he looked smaller than my fear had made him. Did you hit my brother? I asked. My voice was barely more than air, but it carried. Travis looked at me then. For 1 second I saw the truth before he buried it. Not guilt. Not sorrow. Panic. That was worse. Vincent saw it too. Do not answer her unless you plan to tell the truth, he said. Travis took a step back. You are threatening me. No, Vincent said. I am giving you an opportunity to leave this hospital without making a 3rd mistake. A uniformed officer appeared at the end of the hallway with a hospital administrator beside him. Not rushing. Not dramatic. Just present, as if the building itself had finally decided to wake up. Anthony walked toward them with calm purpose, speaking softly, holding out his phone. Travis looked at the officer, then at Vincent, then at me. The mask slipped completely. Emily, listen to me. I stepped back before he could finish. It was the first step I had taken away from him that did not feel like running. No, I said. The word shocked me with its strength. I am done listening. Vincent did not smile. He did not look proud. He simply stood between Travis and the intensive care unit doors, his hands relaxed at his sides, his voice quiet enough that only we heard it. Some men mistake silence for permission. Then he looked at me, and the cold in his eyes softened by one impossible degree. You never gave him permission. The officer asked Travis to come with him to answer a few questions. Travis protested, but the sound faded as they guided him down the hall, away from Noah, away from me, away from the lie he had tried to make me wear. When the elevator doors closed behind them, my knees finally gave out. I caught the wall before I fell. Vincent reached out, then stopped himself, letting his hand hover in the space between rescue and respect. Emily, he said. Breathe. So I did. One broken breath. Then another. And for the first time since Noah's accident, the air went all the way in. By noon, the hospital had learned how to pretend nothing had happened. That was one of the cruelest things about places built for emergencies. A man could be escorted away by police. A girl could nearly collapse against a wall. A truth could crack open under fluorescent lights, and 30 minutes later someone would still be asking for insurance cards at the front desk. I sat in the waiting room with both hands wrapped around a paper cup of water, because coffee made my stomach turn now. Vincent had disappeared after making sure I could stand. He had not asked for thanks. He had not asked for an explanation. He simply told Anthony to stay near the elevators, then walked down the hall with the hospital administrator like he owned every locked door in the building. I told myself that was good. I told myself distance was safer. Men like Vincent Moretti did not step into a life without changing its shape. Still, every time the elevator chimed, I looked up. Around 1:15, Marlene from Patient Financial Services returned to the waiting room, holding a folder against her chest. This time her trained smile looked confused. Miss Carter, could I speak with you for a moment? My heart sank. I stood slowly, already bracing for another number I could not pay. Is something wrong? No, she said, and then seemed surprised by her own answer. Actually, no. Your brother's account has been brought current.
Ist daher.
What does that mean? The outstanding balance has been paid. There is also a deposit on file for continued care, specialist consultation, and rehabilitation planning. The words entered my ears but did not connect to anything real. Paid. Deposit. Continued care. They sounded like words from another person's life, someone with parents' savings, a credit card that did not get declined over sandwiches. That is impossible, I said. Marlene lowered her voice. A private foundation covered it. What foundation? She looked at the folder instead of me. The Moretti Family Charitable Trust. The waiting room tilted just slightly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me to reach for the back of a chair. Vincent. Of course, Vincent. Quiet, efficient, impossible Vincent, moving money around like mercy was just another business transaction. I should have felt relief first. Part of me did. It came sharp and bright, almost painful. Noah would not be moved because I was poor. Doctors would not pause because my bank account had $37.18. My little brother had been given time, and time was the one thing I had been begging the walls for since the first night. But underneath the relief came heat. Shame. Anger. Fear dressed up as pride. Because gifts. That large did not feel like gifts. They felt like chains polished until they looked kind. I found Vincent outside the chapel, of all places. He stood near the glass door, looking in at the rows of empty wooden chairs and the electric candles flickering without flame. His suit jacket was gone, his sleeves rolled to the forearms, his phone in one hand. He looked less untouchable like that. More human. That made me angrier. You paid Noah's bill, I said. He turned before I finished speaking, as if he had known I was coming. Yes.
No denial.
No apology. Just yes. You had no right. The hospital had no right to make a terrified sister negotiate her brother's care with $37 in her account. My face burned. So you checked my bank account too? Something changed in his eyes. Travis said it in the hallway. I heard him. I hated that I had forgotten. I hated that he remembered. You do not get to buy my gratitude, I said. My voice shook, but I held it steady enough. You do not get to walk in here, fix what hurts, and expect me to look at you like you saved me. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Behind the chapel glass, the fake candles trembled with mechanical light. Good, he said at last. I blinked. Good. Yes. His voice softened, not much but enough to unsettle me. I was starting to think the world had broken you. The words landed somewhere deeper than I wanted them to. I looked away first. I am not broken. No, he said. You are exhausted. My throat tightened. I hated that too, how accurately he named things. Why would you do this? I asked. You do not know me. Vincent looked past me toward the intensive care unit doors, where Noah slept behind machines and prayers and unpaid miracles. I know what it looks like when someone is left alone too long. For the first time he sounded less like power and more like memory. I had no answer for that. I only stood there in the chapel hallway, angry and relieved and terrified of owing a man who seemed to understand loneliness better than kindness. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen, and the softness vanished from his face. What is it? I asked before I could stop myself. Vincent ended the call without answering it. His eyes lifted to mine. The camera near Mason and 3rd has been found. My heart stopped. And he slipped the phone into his pocket, his voice low enough that the hallway had to lean in to hear him. Travis was not alone in that car. The words did not make sense at first. They stood between us in the chapel hallway, cold and impossible, while the electric candles flickered behind glass like prayers pretending to be alive. Travis was not alone in that car. My mind reached for the sentence and pulled back as if it had burned me. Who was with him? I asked. Vincent did not answer right away. That silence told me more than I wanted to know. He looked toward Anthony, who had appeared near the elevators with his phone held low at his side. The older man gave a single nod, then stepped away again, quiet as a shadow returning to the wall. Vincent turned back to me. A man named Russell Hayes. My fingers went numb. That is Travis' cousin. Yes. I shook my head slowly. Russell. Loud Russell, who came to cookouts with a cooler and too much cologne. Russell, who had asked Noah where he played basketball. Russell, who had once joked that my brother was getting tall enough to be trouble. The hallway blurred at the edges. Why would they hurt Noah? Vincent's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed careful. Noah saw something he was not supposed to see. The camera shows him crossing near Mason and 3rd. It shows the Malibu turning without headlights. It shows Travis driving. I pressed a hand to my chest, not because I could not breathe, but because I needed to remember where my body ended and the nightmare began. Does the police have it? They will. That is not the same thing. My voice came out sharper than I expected. Vincent looked at me, and for once, he did not seem offended by my suspicion. No. It is not. Then give it to them. I am. Now. The word cracked through the hallway. A nurse at the desk glanced over, then looked away quickly. Vincent studied me for a long second, and I saw the moment he understood that money, power, and quiet favors would never be enough for me if they stayed in the dark. Anthony, he said without looking away from me, send the file to Detective Morales. Directly. No dilas. Anthony lifted his phone. Done. Just like that. A piece of truth moved into the light because I had asked for it. No, because I had demanded it. My knees felt weak again, but this time it was not fear. It was the weight of realizing I still had a voice. Vincent seemed to see that too. You should sit down, he said. Do not tell me what I should do. His mouth almost curved. Almost. Fair. I should have walked away then. I should have gone back to Noah and waited for the next doctor, the next scan, the next hour I needed to survive. Instead, I noticed how tired Vincent looked. Not the polished tired of wealthy men after long meetings. Something older. Something buried under discipline. His eyes shifted past me toward the private elevators at the end of the hall, the ones I had never been allowed to use. Who are you here for? I asked. The question surprised both of us. Vincent's face closed halfway, but not fast enough. My mother. The answer changed him. Just 2 words, and the man who could make officers appear, debts vanish, and cameras speak suddenly looked like a son standing too close to a door he could not open. I followed his gaze. Is she sick? Cancer, he said. Late stage. The hospital's sound softened around us. For 3 nights, I had imagined him returning to some marble penthouse, some table where powerful men waited for his orders. I had never imagined him sitting beside a bed, counting breaths the way I counted Noah's. I am sorry, I said. This time the word did not feel useless. Vincent nodded once, as if accepting more would cost him too much. She does not always know me anymore, but she knows my voice. So I read to her. Something in my chest loosened and hurt at the same time. What do you read? Letters my father wrote before he died. Recipes she never used. Grocery lists from when I was a boy. I pictured him there, sleeves rolled up, voice low, reading ordinary things to a woman who had once held his whole world together. It made no sense with the fear people carried around his name. It made perfect sense with the coffee he had placed beside me. You have been here 3 nights too, I said. Vincent looked at me then, and for the first time he did not hide fast enough. Yes. The truth sat between us, quiet and strangely gentle. He had not been watching me from above. He had been surviving the same hallway from the other side of money. Before either of us could speak again, the intensive care unit doors opened. Dr. Patel stepped out, searching the waiting area. My heart leapt so hard it hurt. Miss Carter, he called. Your brother is waking up. I moved before I remembered how weak I was. The hallway stretched in front of me, bright and endless, but Dr. Patel was holding the intensive care unit door open, and beyond him was Noah, and that was enough to make my body obey. I heard Vincent say my name behind me, not to stop me, only to steady me, but I was already through the doors. The cold blue room looked the same as before. Same machines. Same clear tubes. Same folded blankets. But Noah was different. His eyes were open. Not fully. Not easily. But open. Brown eyes, cloudy with medicine and confusion, searching the room until they found me. I stopped so suddenly Dr. Patel almost bumped into my shoulder. For 3 nights I had imagined this moment 100 ways. I thought I would run to him. I thought I would cry. I thought I would say something brave, something big enough to cover all the fear that had lived inside me since the phone call. Instead I whispered, "Hey Bug." Noah blinked once. His fingers moved against the blanket. Small. Slow. Alive. I crossed the room and took his hand with both of mine, careful of the wires, careful of the bruised places life had left on him without asking permission. His lips parted. The sound that came out was rough and faint, barely more than breath. Ing. My knees nearly gave out again. I pressed his hand against my cheek and laughed through tears I could not hold back anymore. Yes. I am here. I am right here. His eyes moved around the room, unfocused and scared. Car, he whispered. Dr. Patel stepped closer, gentle but alert. Do not push yourself, Noah. But my brother looked at me, and even through the fog I saw him trying to climb back into the night that had almost taken him from me. Travis, he breathed. The name cracked something open and healed something at the same time. I squeezed his hand. They know, I said. You do not have to carry it alone anymore. Noah's eyes filled with tears, and mine did too, because he understood. Somewhere behind me, Vincent stood just outside the room, not entering, not claiming space that did not belong to him. I saw his reflection in the dark hospital window, tall and still, his face unreadable except for his eyes. He had done what powerful men did. Found information. Moved money. Opened doors. But he had also done something power could not fake. He had stopped at the threshold. He had let this moment be ours. Later, after Dr. Patel said Noah needed rest, after the nurse adjusted his medication, after my brother fell asleep with his fingers still wrapped around mine, I stepped back into the hallway. Vincent was waiting near the window overlooking the parking lot. Afternoon light washed the city in pale gold, softening the edges of everything it touched. For the first time in days, the hospital did not feel like a cage. Detective Morales has the footage, Vincent said. Travis and Russell are being questioned. Your brother's statement will matter when he is ready, not before. I nodded, but my eyes blurred again. Thank you. The words felt too small. For Noah. For the bill. For listening when I said send it now. Vincent looked at me for a long time. You should never thank someone for doing the decent thing. Most people do not do it. His expression shifted, not quite pain, not quite regret. No. They do not. I looked down at my hands. They were still shaking but differently now. Not from fear. From the body learning it could stop running. I was angry, I said. About the money. You had every right to be. I still am a little. This time his mouth did curve barely. Good. A silence settled between us, no longer sharp. Across the hall, a nurse laughed softly at something behind the desk. Somewhere upstairs, a child complained about pudding. Life continued, ordinary and impossible. Vincent reached into his coat and took out a small white card. No gold letters. No dramatic promise. Just his name and a phone number written in dark ink. On the back, he had written one sentence by hand. When you are tired of surviving alone, call me. I stared at it until the words blurred. Is this another rescue? I asked. No, he said. It is a door. You decide whether it opens. That was the moment I understood the difference between being claimed and being protected. One takes your voice. The other waits until you use it. Vincent Moretti turned and walked toward the private elevators, where men lowered their eyes and the city seemed to hold its breath for him. But before the doors closed, he looked back once. Not like a man who owned the world. Like a man who had finally found something in it he did not want to break. I held the card against my palm and looked through the intensive care unit glass at Noah sleeping peacefully. 3 nights earlier, I had believed I was invisible. By the 4th, I understood that sometimes mercy does not arrive loudly. Sometimes it wears a black suit, brings terrible coffee, and teaches you that even in the coldest hallway, you are still allowed to be human.